Hey, welcome back to Make Space Boring News. I'm Jason Kanigan, founder of This Thing Called Star Tech, a data science, machine learning, and process improvement company. And I am here with Dr. Christopher Newman, who is a UK space lawyer. And he is on because I asked a question, which is what's something that really grinds your gears about space law and you wish people would have a different perspective on? And Chris is just not an angry guy, so he's not going to come back with that feisty sort of approach. But he does have a topic that annoys him, so let's hear it.
Yeah, hi Jason, and thank you so much for having me on. And as you rightly say, I'm not a man of passion. I am not a man who gets angry, and so this is more of an eyebrow-raising interest rather than a full-on irritant. But it's the attempt to shoehorn space law into maritime perspectives. And I've been to a few conferences where I've seen it presented as this is what maritime does, therefore this is what space should do. And I think, yeah, okay. So I once did an exercise with students, and I said, describe for me Antarctica. And so I got them to describe it, and I said, right, describe for me a desert. And I got them to describe a desert. And I said, okay, let's take away the obvious similarity, the obvious sort of differences. One's really hot and one's really cold. Actually, there's a lot of similarities between Antarctica and a desert. But you wouldn't necessarily have the same regulatory procedures for one as you would with the other. There might be areas where you're going to think about, having crossover. There'll be areas of similarity. These are environments that are extreme. They're environments that humans don't, naturally thrive in without a significant amount of assistance. So in that respect, space, I think, is very similar. But I also think it's sufficiently different. Just as Antarctica is different from a desert, the sea is different from space. There are differences in there. Apart from anything else, as a lawyer, there's 1,000 years of precedent, over 1,000 years of precedent for activities that occur on the sea, and how that regulates and how humans deal with each other on the sea. We just don't have that level of understanding yet. We don't have those natural rules that have emerged over centuries. So I appreciate there's a temptation to look for lessons, and I think that's actually a really useful thing, looking for lessons from maritime as we would look to lessons, from any sort of environment. But all of the eggs in the maritime basket, I think that's a bit dangerous.
All right. Well, I agree with you, and I think there's a lot more similarities between the desert and space than the ocean and space, and the things in the ocean are hidden underneath, and it's easier to detect things, I think, in space and see them than it is.
I think there's a whole range of areas where you can say it's a bit like that, it's a bit like this, and it's a bit like everything. Humans don't last well there, and humans don't last well in Antarctica. They don't last well in the desert. They don't last well at the bottom of the ocean. So I think there's a number of different ways. Whether it's what people know and whether it's people feeling comfortable with that, whether it's not being fully nuanced in international law and seeing superficial similarities. I mean, I'm as guilty of that as anybody. But I think there's just a number of little areas where I would like to just tweak the understanding and say maritime might apply, but I think we need to cast our net, if I can say that analogy, a little bit further afield sometimes.
Chris, is there anywhere online that you would recommend folks go, or where a discussion is happening, maybe a meetup or something about this sort of topic?
There are literally, if you join Twitter and you go on the space law hashtag or space policy hashtag, there are tweet-ups and meetups happening online all of the time. One of the great things about, I'm going to be positive again now, because one of the great things about the space law community is that they are wonderfully inclusive. They welcomed me in, and they welcome, we try and welcome new voices in, because this is an area that actually thrives on bringing in new voices and thrives on new ideas. What I might have said about the maritime environment might be completely wrong, and somebody comes in with a unifying theory of the two, and that will be fantastic. So there's all manner of tweet-ups, meetups, virtual sort of gatherings, and I think I would be looking on Twitter, looking on social media for one of those gatherings. They're called hashtag SpaceUps. If you have a look at them, you'll see all manner of meetings from all manner of backgrounds. And again, this is just one. I will bring in one of the dimensions, and somebody else might bring in a habitat dimension, an engineering dimension, a business dimension. And this is one of the great joys of doing space law, that there is this input from different disciplines saying, have you thought about this? You haven't thought about that. So absolutely, Jason, go online, go on Twitter, search the hashtag #SpaceUpSpaceLaw, see what throws up.
Fantastic. All right. My guest here has been Dr. Christopher Newman, also a professor at Northumbria University and a space lawyer. Thanks for doing this.
Great to be here. Thanks so much, Jason.